right, get it, Chris.
Well, we're excited to have the Hoppers today on our podcast, and Dean and Kim especially, and
Not especially. They're the only ones here.
Well, they're the only ones here, but okay. It's great to have Dean and Kim of the Hoppers here with us, and so we want to talk about. We've started this podcast, and we talk about kind of what's going on in our lives, and not just gospel music, but a lot of different things.
Do you talk about people?
We talk about people.
Buddy, do we talk about people?
We might not
You got
air
anybody?
it, but we'll talk about people.
Well, we were just having a conversation with our daughter about how that she wants to write a book, but she said, I've got to wait till you're dead.
Oh,
So-
no.
So you're going to learn a lot, I guess,
Yeah.
when we're gone. She's
That's
going to put
called
it all in a book.
That'll be
You'll
on
be
her
gone before we are.
That'll be on her farewell tour.
Yes.
Is when that book comes out too. By the way,
That's
it may not be planned for her farewell tour, but that'll wrap it up. So.
That will.
But we're also wanting to get into the history of the group and personally, because with your green background and Dean's Hopper background and all that, how it all came about. So give us just the rundown of, give us a little history
How far back should we go?
as far as we can get. I mean, let's go back to.
Well, the Hoppers started with the Civil War. Actually, our biography book out there starts at the Civil War with stuff about the
Straight
yeah.
up, you're not joking.
I'm not joking.
There's
I'm not joking.
a guy, a family member that fought for the North, fought for the South, captured by the North, and cooked behind the enemy lines and drew 2 pensions.
One from the north and one from the
Got
south.
like
yeah.
$3 a month
So
from
that
the North.
that Claude business background's been there.
It's been there a long
yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, do you know his grandmother, my grandfather's mom, was the largest landowner in Rockingham County.
Holy
Her name
smokes.
was Gussie.
Wow.
Meanest woman that I ever heard that it was in Rockingham County.
Did you know her? Or
No,
was it
I
that
didn't know her. But
okay.
this,
How far back was it?
That would have been probably mid-1800s.
Oh, okay. So I see. My ADD
1850.
kicked in.
My
When you
grandfather
started
was
talking
born
about-
in 1895,
Okay.
died in 1994. So there's a lot of great stories, and then 11 kids in the mix of all of that with coming out of the Depression. You raise your own kids to farm, and they were sharecroppers on the farm. And then my dad, to get the group going, he went to his first gospel concert in Winston-Salem at the Reynolds Auditorium, where everybody came through and sang. That's historic.
Yeah,
But that night it was Spear Family, the Blackwood Brothers, Homeland Harmoniers, and another group. But he said the group that made an impression on him was a Spear Family. He said Mom and Dad Spear were still alive. And Dad was singing that song, I'm Bound for That City, and he had that white hair, and he was walking the stage, rubbing his hand through that hair. He said it was so moving that I thought he was going to go to the city that night, and I wanted to go with him. Now, he continues in the story that he was dating another woman, not my mom that night, and my dad got blessed. He got blessed. He was tearing, raised his hand, he even shouted, glory or something like that. And then he says, I haven't seen that girl since. So I scared her off. Came home.
But it all worked out.
Got the brothers together and started singing the local community as the Hopper Brothers. Before Mom had joined, it was about 2 years before she joined.
It was the Hopper Brothers and Connie.
Yep.
I mean, that was.
Yep. Can I tell you another funny?
Absolutely.
So my grandpa had 11 kids, all right? His uncle had 25 kids.
Whoa.
2 wives.
Okay, all right.
2 wives.
At the same, married at the same time?
No.
Well, no. No, he had 13 by the first, and she died. 12 by the second, she died. Anyway, you know how when the child comes along later, you're not as disciplinary with them. You're a little bit lighter on things, Yeah. So these kids,
I know it well. There's 17 years between my oldest and Jack, our baby. So.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Wow.
So I know that one. Yeah.
So these kids got into everything. So one week it'd be the Hopper Brothers sing at Ellisboro Baptist Church or Sardis Methodist Church or something like that.
In the paper.
In the paper. And so in the next week, it would be Hopper Brothers rob grocery store.
Oh, my goodness.
So they'd never distinguish which Hopper Brothers
That's
it was.
very funny. So
it wasn't.
reputation.
It really wasn't a grocery store. It was really a liquor store.
So they needed Connie to clean up the reputation of the Hopper
That's
Brothers.
it.
And it wasn't
That's
even the
it.
same Hopper Brothers.
Yeah, that's right.
That's hilarious. So tell me the quick story of how Claude and Connie got to know each other.
Okay, so they got married in 1960. She joined the group playing because they had another piano player, but she was there, and Rex Foster was a player. He actually left us and went with the Lefevres. He loved Eva Mae.
Yeah.
And so he was from right there in Winston-Salem. But Mom played the piano because my Uncle Steve said, you know what, Claude, your guitar playing ain't making it.
Oh.
We got to have a piano player.
Yeah.
And so Mom played for the assembly programs in school, and so they got her to play. She asked. And the story is.
Yeah, the story is Connie was driving through town in her dad's car. She didn't even have her own car, and they had just graduated from high school.
Mm-hmm.
And Claude knew of her, that she played for the assembly programs and different things, but didn't really know her. And she was driving through town, and he was working for the A&P delivering groceries. And he saw
You know what
her
A&P is? Atlantic and Pacific.
It's a grocery store.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So he was delivering groceries, and she got to the stoplight, and he walked up to the window and just kind of pecked on the window, and she rolled the window down, and he didn't say, I'm Claude, do you know who I am, anything. He said, my brothers and I have started a quartet. Would you be interested in playing the piano for us? And she looked at him, and she said, well, I have to think about it. And she said the light turned green, and she said yes. And she joined the group. And
Wow.
yeah, she did know Claude, that he would come over. Her dad had like a little quartet, and all the guys in the community would come around to their home place and play banjos and guitars, just make music. And so Claude would come over occasionally, and so she knew him. He had been in her home. But they didn't know each other well until then. And she played the piano, and then after a couple years, they got married.
Wow, that's neat.
She started playing all the time. But my mom played for rock sock
Sock
hop.
Oh, a sock hop, yeah.
In school.
Yeah, like
and
the dance.
she was pretty good with what she did. And so there was a guy that offered to take her to New York to play for
Billy Crash
Craddock.
Oh,
Said,
wow.
there's a country star. He's on the horizon, and we need a piano player. Would you consider going? She went, I'm from Stokesdale. I ain't going anywhere.
It's a good thing she didn't go.
Yeah.
You're here.
Yeah.
So,
And
so
Billy Crash Craddock's from Greensboro.
Greensboro.
Yeah.
That's right.
wow.
Yeah.
So, all right. So then what years when did they officially become the Hopper Brothers and Connie? What year was that?
About the mid-'60s.
And then Claude and Connie married during that time?
They got married in '60.
Okay.
And then at that time, that you still had the four brothers
Yeah.
traveling. My Uncle Steve was the lead singer and was incredible.
Oh,
Really?
Incredible.
See, I've never heard any
Oh,
of
yes.
that.
Oh,
I'd
he's
love to
great,
hear that.
man. Sing the paint off the wall.
Wow.
And Uncle Will and my dad and Uncle Monroe was the bass. And in 1970, they decided to go full time. My mom and left her job. My dad left. He was a plant manager over 5 plants for the Burlington Industries hosiery division. Great job. And my Uncle Will worked for Sears and Roebuck, and they all quit, went to work $50 a week to start the Hopper Brothers and Connie full-time ministry. But Uncle Steve said, no, I'm going to Florida. I'm going to go make my fortune. And so he went down there about 4 or 5 years, and one day he called. He didn't have nothing. He said, Claude, God's telling me to come back.
Bank account is too.
And I said, what did you say, Dad? He said, well, only thing I could say, if God was telling him, just come on.
Yeah, he used the right line.
Yeah. And so Dad started a Hopper Brothers distribution company.
Yeah.
When you had the middleman that delivered music to the mom and pops.
Yeah.
And it was a really, really good business. Of course,
Wow.
he was singing in church and all that. But that's when Roger Talley came, and Kirk came about a year later.
Yeah.
Kirk was with us 5 years.
Yeah.
Roger was with us 10 years. And
then Debbie.
Debbie, when Kirk left, went with the Cathedrals.
That's how Debbie got there. Okay.
Well, they had gotten married, and we had sung with the Songmasters a lot over the past couple of years, and they got to know each other.
Okay.
And then they got married in, I want to say 78 or 77. And so she was just stay at home housewife. Kirk left in November of 79, went with Cathedrals.
Yeah.
And so she came in and she joined us until she got pregnant with Lauren. And that was about summer of 82, I guess.
Yeah.
When she left. Everything has a pinpoint. That's why I know what year these things happen.
When did you become a prominent role in the group?
Well, I had been playing drums since I was a kid, and I've finished my schooling through, we called it then correspondence.
Oh, yeah.
Homeschool. And in 1978, I left school and went on the road full time. And then when my Uncle Will left, he was the last brother to sing with my dad. He left in June of '82, and we were coming home from some place, and Dad said, "Go up there and drive, shut the curtain, put your headphones in, don't listen to what we're saying." I said, "Okay." Of course, naturally, I'm going to listen to what they're saying. Of course, pull the earphone off, and they were trying to decide who's going to take that role, who's going to take that spot.
Yeah.
And Roger Chowley said, "I think you should let Dean do that." How
old were you?
I was 20.
Wow. Yeah.
So I'd been playing drums, and so it was time to sing. And then the bass player left, and he said, "You have to play bass too." I said,
"So you're going to have to sing and play bass now," and you didn't.
And I told my grandma Hopper, I said, "Grandma, you know what they want me to do? You ain't going to believe this. I can't." She said, "Yes, you can."
Yeah.
And I went out that first weekend, and I did it.
Had you been playing bass?
Yeah.
So you knew how
Ginger
to
Lester
play.
was my hero.
So you knew how to play. It was just a matter of playing and singing at the same
It's
time. Yeah.
dividing what little brain I have, 50-50, like, and sometimes it went 70-30. But when we did a live album in Greensboro at over there at the Pentecostal grounds.
Yep.
Don't you remember that?
I was going to bring that up.
On 29.
We were there, and we recorded 2 nights. And the first night, Roger Fortner was there and played bass. I mean, he's just a fabulous musician. And we sang. The next night, nobody was there, so we sang the same songs, and I played the bass and sang. You know what vocals of mine that we used? The ones I had the bass around my neck.
Really?
It was 10 times better.
Wow.
10 times better. At least, well.
So it had to have been more. You were doing something to
I
take
was
your
always
mind off the singing.
I was
probably.
always a musician.
Yeah.
I could put myself into playing the bass, but singing, I was like,
It's awkward.
what am I going to do now?
Yeah. Well, I played drums.
Yeah.
Coming up.
Really?
Yeah. So when my family regionally all around Alabama sang and did that, and I played drums from the time I was 4, but I played on stage from the time I was 9 or 10.
Yeah. That's about
So
me.
I started singing when I was 16 or 17, and I couldn't help it. My hands were always.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I move so much on stage, because I have to move. It's one of those things, and I think I can't just stand there and sing. I think it's your body, your muscle memory kicks in.
It brings
when
comfort and confidence
Yeah.
into what you're doing.
Right.
So now I'm comfortable with it. Okay, I can do it. But I'm very, very grateful for having the opportunity to do what I did. I grew up weekends being on the side of the stage of the Happy Goodman family, the Oak Ridge Boys, the Blackwoods, the Seagos, you name it. I had the opportunity to sit on the side of the stage and watch these people. I grew up with them, and so all these drummers like Billy Blackwood, Rick Goodman, Mark Ellaby with the Oak Ridge Boys, they all, they took kindness to me when they didn't have to. When they didn't have to do it, they were kind.
Yeah, and it literally set up a legacy now. So that was 80. What year did you start singing?
I started singing at 82.
82.
Played drums 10 years prior to that.
So 43 years now that you've been on stage singing. That's older than Chris.
It is. It is.
I'm not going to look over there.
That you brought up that
what
y'all singing
what?
there.
Are you talking?
Wasn't y'all like the host group of that series? I mean, because that's the first place that I heard Gold City. It's the first place I heard Heaven Bound and Kingsman and you guys.
Really?
Well, I mean, I'd heard you guys because y'all were local to me.
We were local. We were a local group. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to me, you were. I mean, I
Okay.
grew up on the north side of Greensboro. Matter of fact, my family, the Brookbanks, were from Summerfield, North Carolina, which is not far from you guys.
We live right there.
And I grew up in Brown Summit. So anyway, in that vicinity, just grew up around you guys. And so so I got the opportunity to hear the Hoppers a lot. But when y'all brought those other groups in, that was I remember distinct. That's one of my earliest memories of hearing Gold City was in that.
That's right.
At that, I can think now it's a Wesleyan camp.
No, it's
or
a
something like
North Carolina Pentecostal Holiness.
Okay.
And they've turned it into actually a performing arts theater.
Okay.
And we've got padded seats now, theater seating.
I hadn't been by there in
nothing like it
years.
was when we were.
Right.
It was all
Yeah.
hardwood seating. But we went there because we'd had a gospel sing / camp meeting style thing at a place called Watermelon Park in Berryville, Virginia, right on the Shenandoah River outside.
Oh, wow.
And we had been there from 73 to 85 when the Great West Virginia flood came through. And being right on the Shenandoah River, man, it just wiped everything out that we had built. And we had 50, 60 volunteers that would go down 3 or 4 times a year, prepare the park. And the guy that owned the park, he wouldn't do anything because all he wanted was the camper hookup. Just pay me my $6 a day for the camping thing. So when that happened, we knew that we felt like we needed to do something else. That time had run. And so we came home to Greensboro. We checked this out. We were going inside because we'd been outside all those years. rain, storms. And so it was really good. We had a really good time there for those few years. And then in the late 90s, things got really busy for us, traveling and busier than it had been. And Dad said, it's it. I can't do any more.
So speaking of the 90s.
Hang on. Let's get there in a minute. I want to hear the Kim side of this thing.
Well, that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going with this.
All right.
Speaking of the 90s, I was going to say that's when they gained a very prominent member in the group. And so y'all were married in 88, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
I know
But
my
you got
gospel
to
music
give. She's
history,
got
so
to
I'm
give
trying
us
to-
the greens.
Well, I'm going
what
for
she
that.
was
Yeah,
doing.
a little bit of that.
You're worrying
I'm
me
going
here,
there,
man. We got to
Josh.
talk about this.
You got to listen.
This
you
is
gotta
one of the
ease into
greatest
this kind of
singers.
stuff.
Well, I don't ease into nothing. This is one of the greatest singers this industry has ever known. Not that
absolutely.
Dean's not. Incredible voice, too. But Kim Green Hopper.
Absolutely.
All right, go on.
What
I'll
a
trust
name.
you for a minute.
What a name of all things.
Just go
Let me
with
just
me
say-
here.
Wish your last name would have been Grass. Kim Grasshopper.
I know.
All right, go.
You're so right.
I know I'm right.
You're so right.
Buddy, I study the voice. It's one of those things. What she does is almost unworldly.
when she was singing with the brothers and she came here, she just had this magical thing in her voice that I remember when we first recorded Here I Am
Oh, man.
at Oak Valley Studio, and man, the spirit came in that place, and my dad was getting ready to retire.
Wow.
He was in his mid-50s,
Holy
going to
smokes.
retire. And that blend
Yeah.
just went like this. And I don't know if you remember Rick Salyer, the engineer. He was engineering there, and he and Dad just laid over the console. It was just
That thick.
it was just over. It was really something.
Wow.
When I think more about it now,
Yeah.
when I look back, and she just had this connection of this vocal. When they came out with that Miracle in Me record,
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
When I know the
I
blood
played that
fell.
all the time.
Yeah.
I backed up. No, that's Tony saying, Kim. That's Tim. Kim.
Yeah.
I just fast forward, rewind, all that kind of stuff. That was a great album.
That
Yeah.
10th anniversary, the Greens, that's my favorite version of that song for some reason. I don't know. And then you did It Sure Sounds Like Angels. But anyway, to get where I was going, Josh, if you'll allow me to take us
trying.
on a journey here.
Patience is not my virtue.
Along came this singer, Kim Green Hopper, and you had been singing with your family since the late 70s, I guess, is when y'all kind of got started.
Yeah.
And
But
it
you
was
were only
and-
2.
I was just 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
two.
At that point.
You and your brothers. So tell us a little bit about how you came to take us up to the point that you joined the
Okay.
Hoppers.
Well, my dad played piano for a lot of local groups, and my dad was extremely talented, heard all the harmonies, and he was singing with these quartets. And while he would be rehearsing with them, Tim and Tony and I would be standing around the piano near him, and we'd be singing along with what they were doing. And all of a sudden he said, "My kids are singing harmony." Okay. And we were 4, 5, and 8. And so as he kind of left those quartets, he started working with us, and we were kind of that weird bunch, with those little kids that could sing harmony at a very young age. So we did our first concert where we opened up for one of Dad's quartets, and I think I was about 5 years old. And
Wow.
and I remember I had a little red velvet dress on. I still remember this. And my mom said that I was so nervous that I had in my mind that if I couldn't see them, they couldn't see me. So I started just rolling that little red velvet dress. And she said it was a long dress. And by the time the end of that song, she said it was completely over my head.
Oh, no.
And but thank God I was 5 years old. Okay.
Yeah, don't do that
Yeah,
tonight.
I don't do that now. I quit doing that when I was about 16. No.
You finally got past it.
That was the same year I got my last whooping.
No, he was about 27 when he got his last whipping. But so anyway, we started singing, and we were invited to go from state to state, and we went to Watermelon Park and entered a talent contest there. And we didn't win, but we came in second, and so we sang
Good
there.
grief, who won?
A monkey.
Oh my! Well, you can't beat a monkey.
Don't follow kids
a
or
monkey.
animals. That's the
right.
rule.
Kids act. That's what my grandpa always said.
Actually, I don't know who it was.
Oh,
that won,
okay,
but,
all right.
But we got to
beat
sing, and
that
so I
monkey.
had seen Dean, and then my dad called Claude one day and said, "Hey, I see you guys are singing within like an hour from our hometown. Can my kids come over and open up for you? I really want you to listen to them and see if you could help us." And so at that point, I was about 12. And so we went there, and Dean was 17, and I had a major crush on him. But I was 12 years old,
Yeah.
He wasn't interested. And
He
then
could not
when
be interested at that time. So
when I was about 19, they needed to borrow a bus. Their bus was in the shop, and we were not working. So he came up to get our bus, and they traveled in that. So I got to see him, and we chatted a little bit. And then we just became friends. And then our families started working together a lot. And he would tell me, he said, I really want to be your friend. And I'd had my heart broken recently, and so I thought, okay, you can be my friend, but that's it. I'm not trusting another man. I'm done.
that's it.
And I had just sold out to the Lord and said, Lord, it's me and you and the ministry that I'm in. And when I was 20 years old, he kept calling and asking me out. And I would think, I really like you, but I'm not going out with you. And I thought he was a heartbreaker. So finally, he called me one day, and I was a cosmetologist. I had done that through school, got my license, and I was working in a salon with my grandmother and a couple of my aunts that they owned a salon together. And so I was doing hair that day, and he called, and he said, look, a bunch of us are up here for a Singing News ski retreat. Some of y'all may remember those. In Boone. And that's where I lived and where I was working. And he said, why don't you go out? We're all going out to a dinner and a movie. I said, oh, okay, I'll go
kept working that
if
angle.
everybody's going. And he said, but I rode up with a bunch of people. Can you just pick me up and we'll meet them? Well, I got there, and there was nobody else there.
Well, they canceled.
They all canceled. So I picked him up in my car.
They went bowling.
Yeah. So I picked him up, and we went to dinner, and we were sitting there. And I know this is
wait a
so
minute.
funny.
You got to tell him
What you did?
what I did before.
I didn't see it, but it was snowy and icy. It was like in January,
She
wasn't
had
it?
this little Pontiac Fiero.
Yeah.
Fiero, not a
Pulled-
Ferrari. She had a
Pulled
Fiero.
up on
Fiero.
a hill like that. She was going to drive her.
And he was dressed up kind of nice, had his nice shoes
yeah,
on.
I've
Been
hit
waiting
the-
since you were 12.
Yeah.
My feet hit the ice. I went,
Oh,
He
no.
fell, but he was back up, he said, just
Well,
so
you
quick
know he
that,
was.
that I didn't even notice. And he never let on till like years later. He told me, he said, did you know that I busted my behind really bad? And I was so mortified. I was not going to tell you that.
That's great.
So anyway, we went to dinner that night, and I don't know if you know how young girls are, but when you're out with boyfriends, like you don't eat in front of them. You can't.
You just can't.
You know, you just, you make sure your hair's perfect, everything, and you don't eat because he'll think you're a little pig, So I wouldn't eat in front of anybody. And so we're having dinner across from each other, and we start talking, and I get so comfortable. I just sat there and just started eating as normally as anybody. And as we talked, it wasn't a fancy place. It was real kind of real woodsy type place. So it was dark and had lots of wood on the walls everywhere. And there was a little candle there. And he looked at me and he said, you look beautiful in this light. and I looked at him and something hit me and I thought, I will spend the rest of my life with this man.
Wow.
That was a good line.
And
Dean.
That was a cheesy line, but
Yeah,
it worked.
it was.
That's the Lord. That's how
And
the
it-
Lord works.
And we got engaged in 3 months. 3 months later, we were engaged, and then
Wow.
we got married 6 months after that.
Holy smokes.
And then I joined the family. I stayed with my family for another year. We got married in '88. I joined the Hoppers.
Well, that was
And-
the thing about it is that leaving your brothers because
awful.
I love them. They're all both of those guys, Tim and Tony, were both good singers,
Yeah.
distinguished voices. I mean, but it wasn't Kim
Yeah.
because you had that voice, and I don't mean to make you feel weird or anything,
No,
but it
I
was
know what
that
you
big
mean.
of a deal. And it seemed like the
Look,
songs
we've just
were
gone
yours.
through 30 years of therapy. Well, I appreciate you not bringing that up.
You just have got her to a humble state. Is that what you're saying?
No,
But
you know
what was the, because that had to weigh on you heavy.
It weighed on me heavily. Actually, a lot of people don't know this, and this is the honest truth.
Wait a minute now.
Yeah, you know this. You know this. We were having people that were big Hopper fans come to him and say, Nadine, you know that you can't leave the family. She will have to come here.
Wow.
And then Green fans were coming to my brothers and saying, no, you can't let that sister go. Dean will have to come here. And we were being pulled so bad. And
wow.
I would cry. I'd say, Dean, what are we going to do?
Feeling
what are
all
we
that
gonna
pressure
do?
from both sides.
It was.
Yeah.
And one day we looked at each other and said, we love each other, but I can't do this.
Wow.
We broke up for 2 or 3 weeks, gave him his ring back and everything for 2 or 3 weeks. And we just didn't know what we were going to do. And he had been begging God for answers.
Yeah.
And he called me one day, and I was just bawling my eyes out. We were my family and I, we were in a hotel room getting showered, and he called and he said, "Where are you on November the 20th?" And I was thinking, well, and I looked at it and I asked Tony, which Tony booked the dates, and he said, "That's a Sunday, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "We're not singing anywhere that day." And Dean said, "We're getting married that day."
Come on
and he
now.
said,
That's a better
God
line.
has just given me the answers. He said, God had just given me the answers of what we're going to do. And I'll tell you about it later, but mark that date down. And he gave me my ring back, and
And you said, okay.
I said, okay. I trusted
Well, he
him.
used
You
the
know where
God
we were?
line. It was that Hopper's, that just like his uncle had used. It was that God line that he said, and that's an age-old Hopper thing now. We know that. We've discovered that in this episode.
We were in Springdale, Arkansas at a church on a Sunday morning, and I had called her from the pastor's office after
Wow.
that, and then I went to the bus and told my dad. My dad laid back there and cried. I've never seen him cry much about anything, but
What was it? Happy for you, or
he was, and she was his favorite singer.
yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
just loved it. Anyway, he cried. I'm the firstborn.
Yeah.
I was just
no? I get it. I understand that.
I'd
Same
handle
thing.
things around the farm.
Yeah.
When this is what we need to do, son, and I carried all that
Yeah.
out. So that just, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it.
What about your mom and dad? How did they
Well,
react to all this?
I mean, they were very excited
They
about
loved me
us.
till I got engaged.
Yeah, right,
I
right.
bet.
They
Yeah.
did. They loved him, and they loved his family and respected them, and they were real excited for us. But then, we got married, and they said, "Okay, what are we doing here?" And I said, "For now, Dean, I'm going to continue with my family," and he said, "I'm going to stay with mine, and we'll see how long we can do this." And it was almost a year, and he called me one day, and we had, I moved 2 hours away from my family, so I was driving back and forth, and he called me, and I was on the road, and he said, November, it'll be 1 year, and he said, "You're leaving in November, and you're coming with me." And I said, "Are you sure this is what we're supposed to do?" And we were reading through Scripture, and it said, "Shall leave and cleave."
Yeah.
That's right. Yep.
And I thought, we had talked with lots of ministers, and I said, what is my role? And they said, you're to submit and be with your husband. And so I left my family, and they were not happy.
Really?
They were not happy.
Yeah, I get it. I understand.
It was honestly a couple years before our relationship was where it needed to be, because they just felt like he should leave and come there. But he always said, where I was, I knew how to provide for you.
Yeah.
I didn't know how I could provide if I was somewhere else. And that's true.
Yeah.
So anyway, we
well,
left.
and you had Tim and Tony. They had the parts covered.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they what were you going to do? Play bass?
Yeah. Right.
Sing every once in a while? So I
Right.
mean, it didn't.
Yeah.
That wasn't going to work.
When
so.
I showed up, I usually played drums for him.
Yeah.
Even when she was
Yeah,
there,
because they always had typically had a piano player and,
Yeah.
and a bass player.
I played on that one video they did at Viking Hall in Bristol.
And then you played on that 10th anniversary live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I didn't either.
Oh, that's
I
right.
wasn't there.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
That was
Yeah.
in Ashland, Kentucky.
That's
Matter of
right.
fact, we still play that venue sometimes.
Yeah.
He
And I
dropped-
think
see,
about that because that's
he
where
drops
Singing
this-
Americans recorded live and alive.
There he goes again. He drops
And the
this stuff
Green's
in.
10th
He's a gospel
anniversary.
music historian. He thinks he's a
That's
music
love.
historian, and all he does is pop this stuff off. Who's gonna check it? Who's gonna check it?
Fact check. Fact
That's
check.
right.
Me and him need to get together because I got history.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well enough
Oh,
in
yeah.
here.
Yeah.
We could collaborate.
We
Well,
have our own.
I'll tell you
talks
what.
about-
When you two guys start your podcast, you
You
can
can
do
do
that. Right
that.
now, we're talking about Kim. Okay.
Well, hey, let me tell you how this all wound up. My father passed away, 20 years ago. My baby brother passed away, and the Greens disbanded. And then my mother got sick in 2014 and almost died. She was in the hospital for 4 months and then rehabilitation for 3 months, and I moved her in with me. So she left her home in Boone and moved there. My oldest brother, Tim, got very sick and had to move to the coast
Yeah.
where he could breathe.
Right.
And he had been there 14 years, and the Lord called him to right outside of Greensboro, North Carolina, to pastor a church. So my mom, my brother, and myself are all back together.
Oh,
That's
The
awesome.
family's back
fantastic.
together, and it took 35 years for
Right.
all this to happen, but we're closer than we've ever been. And
how's Tim's health now? Did that?
Tim is doing really well. He's
Great.
pastoring a church, and
He can still sing.
oh, he
Still
can
sing too.
still
Yeah.
sing like crazy.
Well, he had such a. I wasn't joking. Those two singers, Tony and
They
Tim,
were
both
great.
had very distinct voices. It's not you could pick them out.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
I have a cool green story, and I will get back to the hoppers, but I got to
No,
share
no.
this with you. I've never told you this before. So when I was a teenager, I went up to the loft to Tim's studio and recorded my first record, my first solo record.
Yeah.
I need to
And-
hear that.
No, you don't. I did record 2 Gold City songs on that record, though.
It's on Modify.
Yeah,
Not Spotify, Modify.
Modify. But Tim and Tony sang backup on that record.
Oh, did they?
And that it was during the week, and on that Wednesday night, Tim said, "Well, why don't you come over to the church?" Because all my mom and my grandparents had all come down, and we were staying in Boone for that week because it was a big deal for me to record my first record. And so Tim said, "Why don't you come over to the church tonight, and we'll have Wednesday night service. If you want to join us." He said, "I'm preaching." So we went over there that night, and your sweet dad, he was still playing piano at that
Yeah.
time. And I thought that was so cool because all these people that I've looked up to all my life and saw from the stage, they were just normal people
Yes.
in this little church, West Side, is that what it was called?
Westview at the time, yeah.
Westview. And just normal people in this little church. He was playing the piano, Tim was preaching, and it's just a
Tony was leading the
relaxed.
music.
Tony was leading
Yeah.
the music, right? And your sweet daddy took me on the bus. He's like, "Would you want to see the bus?" And of course, me, wide-eyed gospel music lover, I said, "Oh yeah, I want to see the Greens bus." And he took me on the bus, and he was just so sweet, and just they all made me feel like I was just part of the family and like
Yeah.
they'd known me all their life. But as a teenager, that was my claim to fame. The Greens sang on my first record.
Oh, that's very special. I miss Tony so much. It still hurts. It's hard for me to listen to, projects that he
Yeah.
sings on, because it just still breaks my heart. But
He was gone way.
And he was
too
a funny.
soon.
He
Way
was so
too soon.
funny.
So
Oh, he
funny.
was
Funny, so
hysterical.
funny.
Well, I'm not going to tell the story. One of the funniest stories I've ever heard in my life was from Tony, and then some of the things that he would say.
Yes.
I didn't care if he knowed you or not. Like
Uh-huh.
he knew that. Like when I was singing with Gary with Mercy's Mark, that's the first time I really got to know him, and there was just that humor kills me anyway, and it was just so
And he was like
funny.
that from the time he was little.
Really.
Oh yeah,
Just
I
a
mean
card
it
all
just
the time.
never stopped. I laughed most of my life being around him because every day you never knew what was coming out of his mouth.
And you fought with him the other time.
Well, we fought like dogs, but we were only a year apart, so we kind of grew up like twins.
Yeah.
And we fought like crazy, but I couldn't be mad at him for long because he'd say something and I would just bust out laughing. But yeah, I miss his humor. I just miss him. He had the best heart. Oh, the best heart. And you know what? I think one of the greatest compliments is I've had no less than 1,000 people come to me since he's been gone and say, Tony Green was my best friend.
Wow.
Now, you can only
He
have so
can't
many
be. He
best
couldn't
friends.
be.
He couldn't have been. But he made everybody feel that special.
Yeah.
And I mean, how many people can say that?
No, I don't know any.
Yeah.
I don't know any that can do
Yeah.
That's a gift.
It
That's
is
just
a
a gift
gift.
to make
Yeah.
everybody feel that. Well, I wish I could do that.
He loved people and loved
Yeah.
what he did, and he was taken way too soon.
Yeah, he was. Hey guys, I want to take just a second and let you know about a very neat tour that we have scheduled for later this year called the Hits and Heritage Tour. It's Gold City along with our friends the Hoppers and the fantastic Joseph Habedank. It's going to be a great night and tour of incredible songs. It's called Hits and Heritage for a reason. We are staging the hits of the all the songs from, well, not all, it'll take forever for us to do that, but the Gold City songs that you all know so well, the Hopper songs that you know so well, the Joseph Habedank songs that you know so well, not just from Joseph's solo career, but also from his career with the Perrys and singing with other groups. Joseph has had a very long career in this industry. You're going to love this tour. So be watching for the cities that we'll be coming to, and we hope to see you there. So you mentioned it, here I am. So I would have been 14 or 15 years old. And we came to hear the Hoppers, and I think Heaven Bound were there at the Princess Theater in Decatur, Alabama. That's the first time it's the first time I heard y'all in person. But that Mom and Dad bought the Here I Am cassette. Y'all did it that night, and good time of day, that song. Tell me about that song. So it kind of locked in with her. You mentioned that song a second ago.
Sylvia Green from Florida wrote it. A friend of ours in Tappahannock, Virginia, it's on the northeast side toward the Chesapeake Bay of Richmond, had the cassette, brought it to my mom and dad's because they came to the wedding, brought the cassette to Mom and Dad, and said, here's a song y'all need to hear. It's going to be a good song for you guys.
Was it ever?
If you will do it. He goes to the wedding, blah, 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 pass on by a year or so, whatever, later on. Mom pulls that cassette out and plays the song and then brings it to the studio, and Gary Prim does that signature. And that's how we got the song.
And that was y'all's first number one, is that right?
That was I didn't know that. So that was,
Yeah.
he does know. That was the, I get on him, but
he's
does
right
know.
there.
He's right.
He's right there.
I'm just
How far
trying
did
to find.
Home is where the heart is go? Walk out of the valley. How far did they go?
I had that record. I had
See?
to walk out of the valley. Yeah.
You're not going to stump him too many times. But so that was, and I want to say this too, because a couple of weeks ago, I want to get into your health a little bit, if you're okay talking about that, because I feel like it's a testimony. You had a little episode not too long ago that we were together, and like the week before, you told me he was in the hospital, and then he's out there. He wasn't supposed to be on stage that night, but there he was, and we're all watching to make sure.
Yeah.
But when you let me stand backstage and sing for you, I was
That's
a little
man.
Man, come on! But that
Man,
was
I never sounded better. Man, I sounded great.
well, what happened? Because I just wanted to kind of blend in, but I'd find myself just getting after it because it was those songs.
But when you would hit those end notes,
Well-
it was just like because I could hear you.
Mouth open and nothing coming
so
out.
that was, but that was an honor to me to get to do that, for
Hey,
you
we'll do it
because
some more.
Yeah.
hey,
We will.
hey, well, I'll do it, buddy. I may just walk out there and run across the stage every
Come
once in a
on
while.
out, anytime.
But give us,
It's my honor.
thank you. Give us a health update and tell the folks a little bit, because a lot of people may not know. They
Okay.
see you out here all the time.
So in December of 16, I had a series of 7 strokes, 4 one day and 3 the next.
Yeah.
We were on the road. On the first one, we were in a restaurant, or actually we had a country club. The guy owned. We were going to do a Christmas program. Anyway, we were sitting in the area where we were eating, and the bookshelf started just swaying. I thought, what the world is going on? And it quit. I went and sat up. We sang, got home, got to the house the next night. I was upstairs in my office, and Carly was up there with me, and I got bookshelves in there. Same thing. And I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do. So this was about the 16th.
Did you say anything? Did you tell them what was going on?
Yeah, they knew.
Okay.
And
Because see, my thing, I wouldn't have told anybody and just kept, we do that as men a lot
that
of
time
times.
at the house, though, Carly was up there with him. They were working on something, and it took him to his knees.
Oh, okay.
And so she came down. She said, "Mom, something's going on with Dad."
Yeah.
So I'm
go
going
ahead.
to the doc the next morning, have an MRI on my knee because I've got a busted meniscus. All right.
Wow.
And so I woke up. I had double vision. There was 2 of everything in the room. I couldn't even get my way. I said, "Okay, she'll stay asleep. I'll have the young lady who works with us drive me over." And pretty soon it cleared up. Okay. And that night, we sang in Roanoke Rapids, and on the second part of the program, I got double vision again, and I looked at her and I said, "I'm going to the bus." And so I got to the bus, and they said, "We need to take you to the hospital right now." And I said, "Well, call Gigi, doctor friend of ours in Tennessee. If she said, I'll do whatever she says." Okay. So she said, "Dean, you could have an aneurysm, whatever, a blood clot or something up there, stroke. You need to go." I said, "What if I'm going to go? I want to go back to Greensboro where I can at least be near home." And got there, and the doc, he said, "I need to see him have one of these episodes so I can tell what's going on." And at 4 o'clock, I had one. He said, "Yeah, he's had strokes." As it turned out, I'd had 7 when they finally did the thing. So medication for the next few months. I stayed off the road 5 or 6, 7 weeks, lost a lot of muscle usage, and got back out there and was building back up. And just about the time I thought it was good, we got home on a Monday morning. I went over to the bank to see a lady, and I was sitting there, and all of a sudden the room started going hard. You ever read of Tilt-A-Whirl
Yeah.
at the fair?
Oh,
You read one, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So the room started going hard left to right, and I just
Gravity pull.
I just got down and I put my phone and said, "Would you call my wife?" And so a friend of mine picked me up, met me with her, got there. So the next morning, put a stent in the vessel. And so what I have is arterial tortuosity syndrome.
Well, you can say that, so you've got good brain activity.
Yeah. The fact that my vessels coil, crimp, and they will just close up.
Uh-huh.
So that's what happened up there.
But you were only born. You're supposed to have 2 vertebral
Yeah.
arteries that come out of the spine into the brain, breaks into a V, and he was only born with one side. You're supposed to
wow.
have 2.
Okay.
And so that one lone artery kinked and crimped, and it shut the blood supply off.
Gotcha.
So
this they put this stent in, and we've been watching it over the past however many years. I'll have balance issues, or I'll have some brain fog or something like that, and we'll go in and check it. Everything's okay. So I had this test in November, and he said, "I think everything's okay." Got down to Myrtle Beach for Singing in the Sun meeting, was there sitting with all the people from the city, and all of a sudden I felt this coming up. I thought, I have eaten something that's killing me. And it just came up and went right up the side of my face on both sides and just kind of locked me in place. And I sat there for 30 minutes and didn't say anything. And I finally looked at it. I said, "I think something's going on." So I called Kim, told her. She said, "Stop. I'll be there in 4 hours and get you and bring you home." Anyway, they did put a balloon above the stent because the vessel just collapsed like this. And so they put a balloon through it. And it's open right now. So the after effects of that you'll have for about a month. You'll have balance and brain fog. And it feels like you've got a 10-pound balloon sitting on your head. And you don't have good balance. You walk around, and so I'm a lot better now. I go back we'll have another scan in a few months.
yeah, they do scans every 3 to 4 months of CT scans or angiograms. That's the one they call the gold standard, and which is an angiogram where they go into the brain and look and see exactly what's going on.
That's that goes through your leg, and they take you into that room, and there's like a couple people in there. Then all of a sudden, there's 7 shows up, and most of them are women.
Oh,
right?
man,
and
that's
I
not
am
a good
not
feeling.
good with that.
No, of course
And I'm
not.
laying there and can y'all just cover me up?
Yeah,
or
would you?
just cover me up?
Would you not?
Sakes.
This,
Just cover me up, man.
well, we said that we're going to talk about it all here on the podcast. Hey,
It just
look,
got very real.
Yeah, we are. We're going to have to do another time with them. We've got to literally. We're recording this before a concert.
Yeah.
I just looked at the time. We've got to go. So, Connie and Claude have decided to stay home. Carly's out here with you. She's doing an incredible job.
she is.
You have to be so proud. we
Yes,
want to get
we
into
are.
that next time, but we're going to
You
talk
got it.
more in the future.
Let me tell one more story.
Okay.
Okay. So her mom came and lived with us for 5 years, and she got better, doing really good. She's 78 now, can run circles around us all. But I tell everybody that's a wonderful miracle. But my miracle was when the man came in and asked her to marry her,
There you
marry
go.
him,
Yep.
and took her out of my house. And I told her, I said, the prettiest Christmas lights I've ever seen was your taillights driving out of my driveway.
Yeah. There it is. We're going to dedicate this to Dean's mother-in-law.
That's right.
Yeah.
Aaron
To
Wilburn wrote
Nana.
a song called "Those Blessed Tail Lights."
Oh, wow.
Talking about his grandkids leaving, and so you can write one about
There you
your
go.
mother-in-law.
I say that if she's in the crowd.
She just laughs.
Yeah, of
It's
course
funny.
she does.
But
It's
I
funny.
think underneath her breath, she's saying other
Oh
things.
yeah.
She's
So
more
we
wicked.
gotta do this.
Hey, thank
again.
y'all for
Of
letting
course,
us be a
yes,
part of
thank
this.
you.
Thank you.
We've
Awesome.
enjoyed
Thank
it.
y'all.
This is funny.
Yeah.
This is great. I mean, it brings up
It is
great
It's the-
memories.
Well, that's what we're trying to do
Yeah.
is the memories and the things that we all have that everybody wants to hear these things. They don't get to hear them. So
That's right.
thank y'all again.
I got a lot of more. I got a lot of more.